Joan Laporta wants to sign Erling Haaland in 2026, and part of the reason why Joan Laporta wants to sign the amazing striker is because Barcelona are going to be having their elections in 2026. The new Camp Nou is going to be fully opened on that same year, and also Joan Laporta had a meeting with Haaland's agent Pimienta about a few weeks ago, and on that meeting the foundations were laid. It has been said that Barcelona will be able to afford the deal in the summer of 2026. This is some very surprising news because many of us did not expect to see that Barcelona were going to be linked with such a world-class, humongous player. Now, I'm going to be explaining why exactly Barcelona and Joan Laporta are going to be waiting until the summer of 2026 to even make a move for this to happen. And I'm going to be speaking about that later in this video. But the first thing that I do want to say is this. We all know why Joan Laporta wants to sign Erling Haaland in 2026. It's going to help him to get re-elected, to stay there for another few years. Like, I'm going to be assuming that once he does start going for Haaland on that year, he's going to be saying, hey, look, to the people of Barcelona, look at who I am bringing. Look at this operation that I am building. I'm bringing in a world-class striker and probably the best striker in the world. Why would you want me out of Barcelona now? And here's the thing, right? I understand why many will say, but Kevin, don't you think that this is just false dreams, right? Isn't this Joan Laporta just doing the exact same thing he did back in 2021 when he was telling everybody, if I do get elected, I will sign Lionel Messi and bring Messi back to the club, right? It's the exact same thing. It could be false dreams, but it is the positive side in me that makes me believe that this is not going to be a lie, because I do assume that Barcelona by 2026 will be much financially stronger, because in 2021, Joan Laporta picked up a Barcelona that was financially destroyed. Like, I bet you that once he got elected and then he went into the accounts and he saw everything, he saw like a negative 1 billion euro account. Like, there was just no money. So what led towards this moment? What led towards Barcelona going for Erling Haaland? And back earlier this March, it was claimed that there was like this footage, right? And we saw this before. We talked about it on YouTube, and we saw how Deco was talking with Rafaela Pimienta, who again was the agent of Erling Haaland, and they were in this restaurant in Spain, and many of us were assuming that maybe Deco was speaking to that agent because he wants to know exactly what are going to be the foundations and the requirements to sign Erling Haaland. Jared Romero, the one who was showing this footage, he was stating that they can confirm that one of the topics and one of the things that they were talking about in this meeting was about Erling Haaland. They were probably talking about like many other things, but one of the topics was about Haaland, and to us that was huge at that time. And then a couple of days later, we saw Erling Haaland have an interview, and he was speaking about like his future, and the interviewers were asking him like, do you feel happy at Manchester City? And Haaland was like, of course. But then he said, tomorrow you just never know what could happen. And he's basically opening up the idea of him maybe moving away from Man City in the future. And one of the clubs that would welcome Haaland with open arms, it is Barcelona, because at one point about 3 or 4 years ago, they wanted Haaland. So these talks about Haaland and their agents with Barcelona, it is very much real. The foundations and the requirements are set. Now it's just a matter of, can Barcelona and Joan Laporta execute this? And it's crazy to even have this type of conversation because Joan Laporta at this point has lost like half of the board. Mateo Alemán left, the economic VP also left, some other sporting directors also left, and so it's crazy. Now, what are some of the reasons on why we're going to have to wait until the summer of 2026 for Joan Laporta to pull this move off? And to me, it's going to come down to 3 reasons. Point number 1, Haaland has a contract with Man City until 2027. And there is this release clause that has been set when he did sign that contract with Man City. And that release clause was that by the summer of 2024, his release clause was going to be 200 million euros. So this will take into effect in about 2 or 3 months. This release clause is also going to only apply to the clubs outside of the Premier League. And as the years do go by, summer by summer, the release clause of the player is only going to decrease more and more. There is going to be another release clause in the summer of 2025, and that is going to go down to 175 million euros instead of 200 million euros. And then the same thing is going to happen in the summer of 2026. It's going to decrease by another 25 to maybe even 30 million euros. And so I'm just going to be assuming that if it's going to decrease again in 2026, and he only has like 1 year left in his contract and he does not renew, I'm going to assume that his release clause will be around 120 to 125 million euros, which is going to be very much doable for Barcelona by that time. At the moment, they can't do that, and that is why they're waiting until 2026. And it's going to give Man City their biggest sale ever, like in their history, because right now, Man City's biggest sales have been Sterling for 56 million euros and then Ferran Torres for 55 million euros. Selling Haaland for 120 is going to double the record. Moving on towards reason number 2 on why we have to wait until 2026, and that is Lewandowski's contract ends in 2026 with Barcelona. And here's the thing, I'm going to be assuming that he leaves in the summer of 2025. And so moving forward from there, when he does get sold after his 3rd season, in the 2025-2026 season, we're only going to be left with 2 strikers, which is Vitor Roque and Marc Gui. And we do not even know if Marc Gui is going to be enough for us to score a lot of goals. We don't know his level. We don't even know if Vitor Roque is going to be good by that time. But ultimately, with the strikers that we are going to be left with, it is only going to be Vitor and Marc Gui, right? Because nothing is guaranteed. We just don't know. But those will be our strikers. And it's very scary to be in that position because we do need a guaranteed world-class striker. So fast forward from that season in 2026, then we can introduce the dynamic duo of Haaland and Vitor Roque. Again, we'll see what happens with Marc Gui by that time. And I know that many might question, why would we have 2 really good strikers in 2026? Why can't we just have one? Because both of them are going to decrease each other's minutes. And to be honest, it's going to be the exact same conversation that I had with you guys in my previous video. I do not care if I have Lamine Yamal and Messinho taking on the right wing positions. Even though they are both great right wingers and they both do want to see a lot of minutes, I think that it is only safe for those 2 players to share the minutes, because there is going to be enough minutes for everybody because of the amount of games that Barcelona are going to be going through by that time in 2 years. There's going to be so many competitions. And the same thing does apply for Erling Haaland and Vitor Roque. They're going to have to be substituted at some point through the season because of how many games and minutes they have gone through. So I do assume that Vitor Roque and Haaland are going to be running riot at that time. I see Vitor peaking and finally finding his level in 2026. Same thing with Erling Haaland. He'll be in his prime at the age of 26 or 27 years old. And can you imagine just how long those 2 players can be together? By the time we get Haaland in 2026, assuming that he signs a 5 to 6 year deal with us, he can be with us until 2032. That's insane. We'll be set for a very long time. So moving on towards the last reason on why we have to wait until 2026, and that is about Xavi Hernandez. I do assume that Xavi Hernandez will stay with us until the summer of 2026. Yes, he has a contract until 2025, but there is an optional year for him to extend if he wants to. Joan Laporta has already proposed this to him. And if there was one man that can carry us to success from this point that I'm recording this video all the way until the end of the 2025-2026 season, it is Xavi Hernandez. I don't see Xavi Hernandez leaving this summer. I just don't. I think that he will continue. I think that Barcelona will prosper in the Champions League and in La Liga this season. And I think that with what Joan Laporta has been saying and Deco and how they say that, we'll wait and see what happens with Xavi, and how they have also been saying that ideally they would want Xavi to stay, I think that in the end Xavi will stay. I think that Xavi was just going through a frustration period about 2 months ago. And yes, I know that some coaches do need rest, but I believe that if Laporta and Deco can back Xavi this summer with great players, Xavi will have continuity and be with us for 2 more seasons. Now, just because I'm saying that Barcelona are going to be waiting for Haaland until 2026, I'm not also saying that we have to wait until 2026 for us to be the best team in the world and for us to dominate Europe. No, I think that we can still dominate Europe in these next 2 seasons while we wait for Erling Haaland. Barcelona do have the capacity to win in the short term. We just need to have the correct coach, and that's why I do say Xavi Hernandez will be with us until the summer of 2026. I explained this multiple times. And then by the time Xavi does leave in the summer of 2026, if he wants to, by the way, because it's going to be depending on how it goes in these next 2 years, the type of sporting project and team that we're going to be able to propose to any other coach after Xavi is going to be amazing. It's going to be a dream for any coach. And when I mean by any coach in 2026, I'm talking about Pep Guardiola. Pep Guardiola has a contract with Man City until 2025. I'm assuming that he's going to be taking a break after 2025, which means that he'll be available in 2026. And I do think that if, assuming Laporta continues and he gets reelected and he gets Haaland, he can present Pep Guardiola with the best sporting project ever, with so much material to work with. He can say, hey, look, Guardiola, look at how you worked with Haaland 2 years ago or 3 years ago. You're going to be having the exact same player here again, and you're going to be having great players surrounding Erling Haaland, like Lamine Yamal, or Gavi, or Pedri, Kubarsi, Balde, Koundé, Araujo, Frankie, Nico Williams, Zubimendi. It's going to be one hell of a sporting project. We just have to make sure that we tell Guardiola that he's not going to be going through what Xavi did back in 2021, because the type of team that Xavi picked up back in 2021, we had Jugla as our striker, Nico Gonzalez as a midfielder, Eric Garcia and Frankie de Jong as our center back pairings, and then we had Dest as a left winger, Mingueza as a right back. It was a mess, a huge mess. But I'm assuming that in 2026, Barcelona will be financially healthier, sportingly much better, and with so many options to move forward and to be a successful club again. And so that is why I believe Laporta is going to be waiting until 2026. It's due to multiple reasons. I did put my own reasons, and I also laid out like my own foundation, my sporting project for these next 3 to 4 years, with Erling Haaland being included. That is going to be wrapping up today's video. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you guys in the next one.